How's it going, everyone? I am back with another video. This is going to be my week 15 recap video where I just go through all the games that took place this past week and break down, my interpretations and thought processes to how the games went pretty much. So I will just dive into the first game here, which was the Rams and Niners last Thursday Night Football. And oh boy, oh boy, was this was certainly quite the game. If you like defensive, ugly offensive football, which I don't mind a defensive game, but when it's just bad offense, I, you know, do not enjoy it at all, like most people. But yeah, this was just field goals all around. Neither team scored a single touchdown. It was all field goals. Uh, the big story of this one is Debo. Obviously, going into it, he made comments about how he's not like any less open than normal. It's just he's not getting the ball, and he had a drop in this one that at least would have been a first down, might have scored for a touchdown, which would have been huge in this game where there was just all field goals. So he's getting shit on, getting memed about that a lot. This loss pretty much ended the Niners season. They have to win out and have a lot of help to make the postseason. Probably not going to happen. So this loss pretty much ended their season. The Niners were driving late. It looked like they were going to score and take the lead, and Purdy threw a pick. It looks like he had two guys open for checkdowns on the play too. So that was not great on Purdy's part. Um, yeah, we're gonna normally in my these types of videos, I just go through, the individual stats and then the team stats, like a formulaic process. I think from uh, this video here on out, I'm just going to kind of simplify it and just go over stats that I, think are worthy of talking about, some talking points rather than just going through, all the stats. I guess if that makes sense, hopefully. But yeah, I mentioned Purdy. He didn't really have a great game. Uh, Pretty much nothing outside of Kittle from the receiving core. I had Jennings in one of my leagues. He only scored 5 points, 5.1 points, but I ended up winning that league. Thank God. The good thing for the Niners, though, this is another story, is well, Dre Greenlaw was back. He looked pretty good, but why the hell am I blanking on his name? Why am I blanking on his name? Having a brain freeze. Why am I completely blanking on his name? Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Um, why the hell am I completely blanking on this guy's name? All right, give me 1 second. Uh, see. Yes, there we go. Devondre Campbell. I don't know why I just completely blanked on his name. Obviously, he's played most this year because Greenlaw's been out. He's been, played most of the snaps for them. But big story is he refused to go in the game, and that caused a lot of controversy. Obviously, the Niners suspended him. Shanahan just said yesterday that it was a mistake to bring him in, which, ouch, that damn, that's blunt, especially from a head coach. Obviously, yeah, John Lynch, talked about it too. Kittle, who seems like the chillest guy ever, talked about how he was disappointed in it. So that's how you know he really screwed up. I mean, you have to, if you shoot up, you're expected to play, unless you have an injury or something like that. If you shoot up, you're expected to play, especially in a game like this where your playoff hopes are on the line pretty much. So that was really lame of Devondre Campbell, I think. Stafford didn't really do too much in this game. This is a big Kyren Williams game. 29 carries, so almost 30 carries in this one. So big game for him. Nakua played solid. Cooper Kupp, that's a big talking point. Went 0 for 0, put up that Tony Snell stat line. I do think the Rams outplayed the Niners. Even the Niners had the lead for a good portion of this game, but yeah, they were up 6-3 entering the fourth quarter, and the Rams scored 9 unanswered in that fourth. But yeah, I think these stats are probably pretty telling of how the game went. I just said that I think the Rams outplayed the Niners. I think these stats suggest that. So yeah, I think these stats are pretty telling of how the game went. But yeah, Rams are heating up. Good win for them. Looks like they're probably going to end up winning their division. They're tied with this. Well, they technically have the tiebreaker over the Seahawks because they beat them earlier in the year, a couple weeks ago. But I think the Rams are probably going to end up winning their division. So, good for the Rams. I had them at like 10-7, I think, for my preseason predictions. So at least that could, most of my preseason picks have gone to hell. So at least that could hit for me. The Niners, just not a great performance, even though their defense played pretty damn well for most of the game. Yeah, just a classic Thursday, not the best quality of football game, I guess. Um, this is an interesting game. So the Commanders were up. They were pretty much dominating the game. They were up 17-0. Then the Saints, well, they benched Hayner and they had Rattler come in the game. It looked pretty damn good. I statistically didn't really put up a great game, but he came in. They got a trick play to Kamara for a touchdown. Commanders ended up getting 2 field goals after that. The Saints were down 7 late. Rattler and company put together a drive, a bunch of controversy that this is certainly a talking point with. The Saints got the first down. They were at like the 2 yard line, 3 yard line, I believe. And the clock stopped for a couple of seconds. There was 9 seconds left, and the Saints had no timeout, so they had to spike the ball, and the clock stopped for a couple of seconds. So would the clock have ran out, and the Saints would have been able to spike the ball and get another playoff, or they ran the clock correctly? I See, I only like did this once, but I kind of when I was rewatching the highlights from this game, in my head I just kind of counted like how many seconds drained off the clock. I think there would have been at least a second left if the clock kept running. I don't know though. I think they stopped it for 5 seconds. So if that's the case, and they spiked it for 3 seconds, obviously there wouldn't have been any time left. But maybe the Saints, I'm sure they had their eye on they probably glanced quickly up at the clock, see how much time they had left. So, maybe if there was less time, they would have, ran up to spike it even, quicker than they did. I don't know. But anyway, the point is, if the Saints, they scored a touchdown after that, and they went for two on a rollout, they didn't get it. Had they got that, that probably would have been a major talking point the whole week, is that the refs handed the Saints the game. But that did not happen for the Commanders. Uh, so obviously that's good for them. But yeah, this was a kind of an interesting game. The Commanders were dominated, felt like then the Saints battled back. When they put Rattler in the game, it honestly felt like the Saints kind of outplayed them from that point on. Jane Daniels, he had a pretty good game. Yeah, 25-31 for 226. Brian Robinson, a bunch of carries, not too many yards, or yeah, not too many yards, of course, because I needed a big game from him for one of my fantasy teams. Terry McLaurin went off. Of course, I was going against him in fantasy in one of my leagues. Well, actually, he kind of went off in the first quarter, and then first and second quarter maybe, and then after that, um, not too much outside of that. I mentioned Rattler played pretty solid. Jake Haynard, he kind of had a rough game. Cedric Wilson, that was the trick play they had. Kamara got hurt in this game. Miller looked pretty good coming in for his, relieving him at the end. MVS, who's been a very sneaky pickup for the Saints. He had 2 catches in this one with 64 yards. Foster Moreau caught that touchdown. Look at the team stats here. I think it's pretty telling of how the game went. Even though the Saints got zero point 0.4 more yards per play, I think the Commanders outplayed them. It's kind of what these stats suggest. Outplayed them in pretty much all these categories outside of penalties. It looks like certainly sacks a lot. I didn't even realize the Saints got that many sacks on Jane Daniels, though. Certainly want to clean that up along with the penalties. The Commanders hit the ball for 40 minutes, almost 41. That is Jesus. Talk about dominating time possession. That's what the Eagles did against the Steelers too, pretty much. But yeah, this was Commanders, solid win against a, not a great team, but a team that's been playing some half decent ball since Darren Rizzi took over. Could not have imagined 9 wins for the Commanders coming into this year. So good for them. Saints a tough loss, but hopefully they can continue to fight the back half of well, not the back half, the last couple of weeks here. Oh boy, Chiefs Browns. So everyone, we're gonna give the Chiefs a round of applause. They beat a team by more than one score and didn't need luck or a fluky, ridiculous bounce of the ball to go their way to do it. I think the only other two teams they beat by more than one possession were the Saints and the Niners. In this game, how many turnovers did I want to say they had 5 or 6 turnovers. Let's see. Um, yeah, six turn. So this is. It looked like the Chiefs were just going to blow the Browns out as the game progressed. So of course the Chiefs did get a lucky play that allowed them to get their first touchdown. Is the Browns forced a 3-and-out in the Chiefs' first drive of the game. Chiefs got the ball first, and then they kicked the punt, and it's muffed, of course. So already a lucky play bouncing in the Chiefs' favor. They scored a touchdown after that. Then their offense pretty much stalled out, didn't do anything after that till the second quarter. They got a touchdown on the board. Butker missed a field goal, a chip shot field goal. So it was only 14-0 at that point. I'm like, all right, well, the Browns defense is playing pretty well. Maybe that's going to give them a momentum spark. Well, Winston, there was points throughout this game where the Browns moved the ball and they had solid and Winston would just turn the ball over just in ugly fashion, force a couple passes that should not have been forced. But anyway, he got benched for DTR, and they actually benched him going into this week. So there was kind of talks about maybe should the Browns, you know, have Winston as their starting QB next year. Well, I think those talks have been put to rest with Winston being benched for DTR. But anyway, back to this game specifically. The Chiefs are at 21-0, and the poor Nick Chubb, by the way, ended up he broke his foot, I'm pretty sure. So poor Nick Chubb, obviously coming off the Achilles tear, or was it any? I don't even think. Hang on, was it an Achilles tear? No, it was a I don't think maybe it wasn't a kill. I think it was a torn ACL, MCL. Regardless, some brutal knee injury. Obviously, Nick Chubb against Week 2 last year against the Steelers sustained coming back, still working his way back, and then he's out for the year again in this one. So obviously that's horrible for Nick Chubb. Hopefully, he can his career isn't like. Well, I'm definitely sure he'll probably be back, but hopefully his career isn't like completely derailed and it's like a what if scenario with him for the rest of his career. But Nick Chubb, Jerome Ford got a nice carry on it. It's a second and 20 something. He broke loose, got a touchdown. It was 21-7. There was a streak in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter, where the Browns defense forced like 8 straight incompletions on Mahomes. The Chiefs offense stalled out. So that was the point I was going to make earlier. The Chiefs won by 14, and they won the turnover battle 6-0. Like that has to be at least slightly concerning on the Chiefs. They just cannot blow teams out. And yes, this is more than a one-score win, but they cannot blow teams out. And the Browns are not a good team. They've been playing better since Winston took over. The Browns are still not a good team. They should have won this game by more, considering they won 6-0 in the turnover battle. They had 9 punts in this game, and again, 6 turnovers, and you only win the time possession battle by 3 minutes. Like this Chiefs team they're definitely the worst 13-1 team in the history of sports, at least in the NFL, in my opinion. But they are, they are definitely. You can probably make an argument they're more vulnerable this year than they are last year. Or they were last year, rather. Obviously, record-wise, they're better, but oh boy, yeah. The Browns, they had some momentum. They were about to make it 21-14. Felt like then Winston threw another turnover. I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude. I predicted that the Chiefs defense would have a really good performance, and that's kind of exactly what happened in this one. I figured they'd give Winston. I didn't anticipate 6 turnovers, and a couple of them the Chiefs defense did force themselves, but a couple of them were just Winston making some poor decisions. I would say another big talking point of this game, Mahomes injured his ankle. It looks like he's trying to play against the Texans. I think it's better for them to rest Mahomes for the playoffs, because even if Mahomes starts, I think the Bills are still going to get the 1 seed, because I think the Chiefs I think they're going to at least lose 2 out of the next 3, the final 3. But you can make an argument they're going to lose all 3. I'm probably, John, I am. I'm going to pick the Texans to beat them this Saturday. If the Texans don't beat them, I'm fairly confident the Steelers will on Christmas, and then they play Denver Week 18. I actually feel fairly decent saying they're going to lose two of the last three at least, and if the Bills win out, which presumably they are, they play my team this week, then they play I believe the Jets, and then my team again. So they should win out, even though it's going to be hard to beat any team, even though my team's horrible, two times in 3 weeks, but I'm sure they'll be able to do it, knowing how terrible my team is. So I still think the Chiefs are going to get the 2 seed, even if Mahomes plays. But I honestly think it's better for them to just put Carson Wentz in, because I honestly don't think Mahomes has done anything special this year for the most part, to the point where he's like individually won them the game. Yes, he has a few highlight plays and he makes some extra plays, you know, during the course of some games that, any other quarterback can. It's obviously helped them win. But I think you could literally plug any quarterback into this year's Chiefs team. And again, this is a whole separate debate, and they would have the same results as they do now. In other words, I just think Mahomes, for the most part, has been a game manager this team, or this team this year, and has played to the defense pretty much. I think Carson Wentz, basically another way to phrase it, I think Carson Wentz is more than capable of, for at least 3 games, doing what Mahomes has been able to do, and not having a dramatic drop off to the point it's going to lose them some games with how well their defense has played most of this year. So I think it's honestly better for them to rest Mahomes and for the playoffs. But the only bad thing is, let's say they get the 1 seed. So Mahomes doesn't play until the postseason. That is 4 weeks off before he plays. So maybe a bit of a rust factor. And then if they get the 2 seed, that's 3 weeks before he would play. But it looks like he's going to play anyway, so that's a moot point pretty much. Again, I can't wait till the playoffs start. I have so much. I can't wait. I have so many video ideas and stuff that I'm excited for. But yeah, mentioned the Chiefs did not do much offensively this game. It felt like they were just going to blow the Browns out, and they didn't. Yeah, think these stats are pretty telling. It's kind of close in a lot of these categories. The only difference is the 6 turnovers really hurt the Browns, obviously. So yeah, I think that sums up that game pretty much. It's going to be interesting to see how the Chiefs handle the Mahomes injury situation there. Bengals Titans. The Bengals actually have like semi-realistic playoff hopes still. I think they're going to win out to finish 9-8. So obviously they need to have that happen for them to make the playoffs. Then they need Miami and the Colts to lose at least 1 game. I think Miami probably will. Indy is a very easy schedule, but I think it's realistic they lose at least 1. And then they need either Denver or the Chargers to lose out. I don't think the Chargers are going to lose out, especially they play my team and the Raiders. And even if they drop the Broncos tonight, you have to imagine they'll at least win one of those games. So then they need Denver to lose out, which I'm predicting Denver to lose tonight to the Chargers. I think the Bengals are going to beat them next week. So then if that happens, all the Bengals need is to have the Chiefs beat them, beat the Broncos week 18, and they would be in. As disastrous as their defense has caused their season to be this year. But anyway, for this game, a bit of a maybe scary start for the Bengals at the start. The Titans were up 14-7. The Bengals turned the ball over a couple times on like their first drive. Burrow ended up throwing a pick. I think it was kind of tipped, so it wasn't really fully on Burrow. He ended up throwing a pick in the third quarter too, I believe. But Will Levis ended up negating that pretty much. He played pretty poorly in this game. I think he had 3 picks. Yeah, he had 3 picks. He got benched. They benched him moving forward for Mason Rudolph, at least this next week. So again, Will Levis has kind of been playing better ball. Some people have been talking about maybe they should keep Levis for next year. Well, I think that point has also been negated because it seems like Levis is done for this year. Mason Rudolph actually looked fairly solid when he came into the game. One of his touchdowns came with literally no time left, so kind of a stat patter a bit there, maybe made the score a bit more respectable. Bengals hit a scoop and score with one of their players. He ended up doing what Jonathan Taylor did in the Denver game, just dropped it right before he crossed the goal line. I thank God this has not happened to my team. I mean, my team's horrible anyway, so you know, it probably doesn't want to even matter if my team had it happen. But oh my God, I get pissed off when that happens, you know, to teams I'm not even like fans of really or supporting too much. I kind of like the Bengals, so I guess I support them. I do hope they stay into the playoffs. That would be very entertaining to see if they can make it in, to see what they can do. It'd probably come at Denver's expense. And not I'm a Patriots fan, so I'm not a Broncos fan, but Denver, they certainly I think are deserving of making the playoffs this year too. But yeah, Burrow I think played a pretty solid game in this one. Chase Brown had a pretty solid game. He's kind of been very underrated, a stud all year. Chase, Higgins, Gesicki, nice balance there per usual from the Bengals. Not much from the rushing game. Tajay Spears had a couple nice receptions. He had two late. One he broke loose. He got a bunch of yards out of. Um, yeah, Bengals defense actually played fairly well. Again, Will Levis greatly helped that, but still. Um, I honestly the Titans it probably would have went right down to the wire if Rudolph started and played how he did for this game. Um, these stats are very close to being dead even in a lot of these categories. The yards per play they are even. Total yards four off of even. One first down more for the a lot of these stats are very close. Third down efficiency, the Bengals were awesome, 10 to 13. Time session pretty close. Yeah, penalties. Obviously both teams gonna want to clean that up. Over 200 yards of penalties in this game. That's just bad football. That's just bad. Both teams obviously want to clean that up, especially the Bengals trying to make a playoff push. But yeah, much needed win for the Bengals. Titans, I don't think we really could have expected much out of them from this game, pretty much. So I guess game maybe went as a lot of people expected. Dolphins Texans. So Tua played pretty bad. Threw three picks, had multiple chances to make the game interesting, tied up, and threw picks. I've never been sold on Tua as a quarterback. I think Hill and Waddle and McDaniel have basically how do I phrase this? I think without a super team of receivers, Tua is not a great quarterback. I guess is a good way to put it. Anytime they do play action, I always joke that the defense would just drop five or six of their guys on Waddle and then the rest of them on Hill because those are the only two guys Tua throws to on play action. Waddle got hurt. Of course, I started Waddle, and he scored 0 points in my fantasy playoff games. So that was fucking awesome. That was great. Tyreek Hill yesterday just posted like he's gonna go coach tweet on Twitter or X now. So obviously that caused a lot of controversy as to what the hell he means. I'm sure the Chiefs will end up trading for him with friggin' Norwalk. But yeah, Tua, I guess outside of the picks, he played a pretty solid completion percentage game. That's the story this year for the Dolphins. Team's been taking the deep shots away, so forcing a lot of checkdowns, short throws to the Dolphins, which I call it to a check down Valoa. So Tua probably doesn't mind that at all. Yeah, Malik Washington was the leading receiver for the Dolphins. So Jonnu Smith had a pretty solid game too. Tua did have a pretty clutch throw to him on 4th and goal in the red zone there that he caught. Hill didn't really do too much. Yeah. So this was unfortunately the Dolphins had one of their rookie receivers go down. Looked like very scary. Got carted off. He was like shirtless, so that was I didn't know if like they did CPR or something, but I think he's doing much better now. So that's good to see. Again, the Texans they won the game, but offensively, just a lot of I don't know, just a lot of I don't know how to put it. Just something's not completely there offensively for the Texans, I guess is a decent way to put it. Pretty much nothing in the run game. Even their receiving core really didn't do a lot in this game. I mean, Joe Mixon was their leading receiver, so that's, not too great. Usually, your running back's your leading receiver. I mean, the Dolphins, honestly, you can make an argument they should have won the game. It's just those picks really hurt them. Those picks really hurt them. Right at the end of the game, down 8, Tua can be the hero, tie it up, and his first pass is picked. Of course, going to Tyreek Hill. That's all he does is throw to Hill or Waddle, I feel like. Which again, if they're open, you have two tracked guys like those guys, most quarterbacks are probably going to, but um hopefully I don't sound like a complete hater. I just have never been too sold on Tua. Um, yeah, these stats I think are pretty telling. Basically, in this game, neither offense did a whole lot, but both defenses played fairly solid. The Texans more so. Obviously, they picked two off 3 times. They did lose a fumble to the Texans, but they won the turnover battle 1-4. So, and they only won by 8. So that's usually not a great sign, I guess. Just a lot of they did clinch the division though, the Texans. That's obviously good for them. Dolphins, their playoffs hopes are kind of on life support. They have to win out, have some things bounce their way. But yeah, Texans, they clinched the division. Not a great, A+ performance, I guess is a good way to put it in that one. Where are we here? Here we are. Oh boy. So honestly, I don't think there's too much to say about this game. I mean, I don't think a single person expected the Giants to win this game that's an NFL fan. I mean, even if you predicted the Giants to win, you just had to be doing it like as a joke. Or I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you're just the most optimistic Giants fan ever, even though most Giants fans probably just want the team to lose at this point, get the highest overall pick and tank. But yeah, just a ugly disaster game for the Giants. They actually had a drive in the second quarter that was a pretty lengthy drive, and they scored to make it 14-7. I'm like, okay, well, this is a little concerning for the Ravens. Maybe, but then the Ravens from that point on just steamrolled them. Lamar had 5 touchdowns, we had 4 incompletions. Derrick Henry didn't really do too much in this game. My team that I keep talking about here, that was one of them was in the, well, 3 of them made the playoffs of my 5, and then the 2 just missed out on the last week. I was really pissed. But Derrick Henry on one of my teams, I got out. My team averages like 120, 30 something points, I think, and they put up, I don't even remember it. I want to say like 70, and I got blown out. They played so bad. And Henry, of course, only, I mean, not even, he had almost 5 yards a carry, but he only had 6.7 fantasy points off of it. Rashad Bateman had a good game. The Ravens just suspended Deontay Johnson. I mean, they traded for him and they're not even playing him. So I don't know what the hell's happening there. Yeah, DeVito got hurt in this game. They had Tim Boyle come in, Tim Boyle, I think I said he's winless with any game he plays in, and he's put up like some of the worst stats like of all time or something like that. He had a touchdown throw to Neighbors late where he beat the blitz. That was actually a pretty nice throw on his part. But obviously he didn't play a great game. Neighbors, a really consistent good game per usual, and then nothing outside of that pretty much. LaWanda Robinson did a solid game too, I guess. So did Bellinger, you can say. Looking at the team stats, I think it's pretty telling. I mean, the Ravens just dominated this game, pretty much what everyone expected, I think. Giants actually won the time possession battle. That's interesting. Penalties. That's been an issue. Their Achilles heel all year. They certainly want to clean that up going into the playoffs. See, the Ravens are an interesting playoff, and I don't want to again talk about the playoffs yet, but the Ravens are going to be an interesting team in the playoffs because this is like probably the most, maybe not flawed, but like issue led. Okay, I don't know if that's a great phrase, but you guys probably know what I mean. This is Ravens team this year probably has flaws and issues that have not been present the past couple years, but they're still a very dangerous team. So they're going to be an interesting team to see what happens in the playoffs. Giants, obviously, it's just a disaster of a year. I think they're the worst team in football. Just a disaster year. Their fans are probably just praying that these 3 games get over with as soon as possible. But Ravens just took care of business, blowout win, kind of what we all expected, I think. Um, Jets Jacks. This was actually an entertaining game. It went right down to the wire. Rodgers played a really good game in this one, not from a completion perspective, barely above 50%, but I think he actually played a pretty solid game in this one. Davante Adams went up to nearly had 200 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. Rodgers hit a touchdown throw to him up the seam late. That was like the classic Rodgers Adams throw. He had a big catch on 3rd and 10, I think, that on the sideline, Adams somehow got corralled the ball, got it in bounds, and then he had a big catch late that led to a touchdown to ice the game. So this was actually a pretty entertaining game in this one. My guy Mac Jones, he looked solid through portions of it. So Mac Jones, see, there's parts of this game where he would like scramble for a first down. He's like, doing like taunts and stuff. And again, Mac Jones, I supported Mac Jones and he was on the Patriots. Obviously, last year was a disaster for him, but now that I'm kind of looking at it after he's not on the team, I think Mac Jones obviously was not a great quarterback with us, but I also think we sabotaged him with the supporting and coaching situation he was in. But I don't know why, but it honestly kind of pissed me off a little bit when he was doing those taunts. It's like for someone to be in the situation he's in as a backup, he's probably not going to be a starter ever again in this league unless someone gets hurt. Probably a career backup, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. On a 3-10 team, and he's struggling against, maybe not struggling, but he's getting a first down or so against a bad Jets team that's been awful this year, and he's doing taunts and stuff. Like someone said that he's the cockiest bad, like the worst. What did they say? He's the cockiest, like, but I don't know. Like they phrased it. I forget the exact wording, but they said something on the lines of, for a quarterback as bad as him, he's like the cockiest one of them all. I'm like, okay, that's actually a solid way to put it, I guess. But I know it's good to see Mac Jones look good through portions of this game, but he did have a pick late that was not a pretty one that iced the game. Jets got a much needed, well, I guess a much needed win, but they're out of the playoffs. But they, I guess, want to end on a hot streak here, maybe build off something optimistic going in next year. There's a bunch of crazy reports about Woody Johnson that came out this morning that said he, didn't want to trade for Jerry Jeudy because of his Madden rating. That they need you to sell the team. Like Woody Johnson, just an absolute disaster. But anyway, back to this game. Yeah, Rodgers, I think, played a good game outside of his completion percentage. He's also their leading rusher. So we had a 40. Is Rodgers 41 yet? I know his birthday's. His birthday. I know it's right around this time. I got to see exactly when though. Let's see. Yeah, it was December 2nd. So yeah, when you have a 41-year-old quarterback as your leading rusher, that's usually a problem. But not in this game. They won. Davante Adams went off in this game. Garrett Wilson had a couple nice catches, touchdown too. You mentioned Mac Jones kind of in an up and down game, looked good, then bad through portions of it. Tried to balance it out with Big C and ETN, but didn't really get too much going from either guy. They had solid yards for carry. Brian Robinson had a good game too. Dropped a touchdown he probably should have had at the end of the first half. Brenton Strange, Parker Washington, Devin Duvernay getting involved, even Travis Etienne a little bit in the receiving game. Jags 21 more yards, one off that magic number of 420. Pretty close in a lot of these categories. Jets had almost 2 more yards per play, though. One of these stats are pretty close. Penalties, an issue for the Jags. The Jets too, but more so the Jags. Yeah, so I think these stats are pretty telling of how the game went. I think it's good. I'm not a big Rodgers fan, obviously not a Jets fan, as a Patriots fan, but good to see, Rodgers kind of turn back the clock, kind of have a vintage performance in the clutch. But yeah, I honestly thought the Jags might have won the well, I kind of figured the Jets were going to hold on once they got that late touchdown, but obviously, all right, well, they probably should have tried to chew the clock, kick the field goal maybe, but the so maybe the Jags are gonna win and it's just another heartbreaker for the Jets. But Jets ended up holding on. Sauce Gardner picked off Mac to ice the game. So Jets solid win, I guess. Jags, obviously their season's a disaster, but competing hard at least. Cowboys Panthers. So a decent amount of Panthers were a decent amount of Panthers. A decent amount of people were picking the Panthers in this game. They were actually favored in this game for the first time. And I think I want to say 2 years, maybe something like that. I picked the Cowboys, and I thought this was going to be a close game that kind of went down to the wire. The Cowboys honestly kind of dominated this game. I figured that the Dallas defense could cause some issues for Bryce Young and company. They caused a lot of issues. They had a bunch of sacks on Bryce Young. Yeah, they had 6 sacks on Bryce Young. They were kind of in complete control of the game. They were on the verge of going at 17-0. Then they fumbled the ball, and then they had a blown coverage, and the Panthers scored a touchdown. So it was only 10-7 at the half, and it's like, oh boy, did the Cowboys just blow their chance to win this game maybe? But nope, they held on. They just dominated the game pretty much, had the lead throughout it. Bryce Young didn't really look too good. Maybe the Panthers coming back down to earth after their couple of consecutive weeks playing every team they were playing close, especially the good teams. Um, so yeah, I think these team stats pretty telling. Cowboys, again, I kind of mentioned were dominating and control the game from start to finish. Yeah, outplayed the Panthers in pretty much all these categories outside of penalties. So I think those stats are pretty telling. Cooper Rush looked pretty damn good in this game too. I think he only has one less touchdown than Dak. I think I want to say. Again, Dak is obviously far better than Cooper Rush, but still, Cooper Rush playing some pretty solid ball. Rico Dowdle, he's been looking better and better. He looks like a nice pick in the draft for them. CD had a good game. Yeah, Bryce Young, I mentioned, didn't have a great game. A lot of those stats in his touchdown came off of the blown coverage. It was like his 80, 70 yards, something like that, touchdown throw. Um, yeah, that it was Jalen Coker that got that. So that's where a lot of his stats come from. Adam Thielen had a pretty consistent game at least. But yeah, I did not expect the Cowboys to dominate the game like this. But good for them. They still had. I don't. They're not going to make the play. Well, mathematically they could. They need to win out and have a bunch go happen for them. But going to be interesting to see how the Cowboys and they play the Eagles. Want to say, is it this week? Might be this week. Okay. Yep. No, this is going to bother me. I'm going to have to double check. I want to say yes. Let's see. Um, let's see here. Yeah, they played. Oh no, they play the Bucks this week. That's right. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how the Cowboys their season ends. Panthers, I guess, you know, it'll be interesting to see how their year ends. Maybe is this going to be how they play the rest of the year, or are they going to play like the team they have been the past couple weeks? So it's going to be interesting to see how these two teams end their years, their seasons. But yeah, did not expect the Cowboys to dominate the game like that. Good win for them. Here we are. Oh, this was a weird game. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So yeah, this is just a really strange game. So obviously the Bucks just kicked the Chargers' ass in this game. The Chargers were winning for a good portion of this game. That it was 7-0 Bucks. They went right down the field, scored. I'm like, all right, well, not used to seeing that with how well the Chargers defense has played this year. And then the Chargers scored. They had a lead. I think they were up 17-10, I want to say. And then the Bucks ended up getting a field goal. And then from in the second half, the Chargers offensively just really struggled. The Bucks were getting a bunch of pressure. Their offense could not be stopped. And they scored 40 against the Chargers, who I think even still might have the top scoring defense after allowing 40. So just an off game for the Chargers for the most part. I'm not too concerned. I think the Chargers defense will be fine. They'll clean some things up. They play the Broncos tonight. I think that's a good opportunity of a good bounce back performance. Um, Especially at home, prime time. So I think that's a good chance for their defense bounce back. Baker went off in this game. He did have that interception where as soon as he threw that pick, I think that was when the Chargers were up 17-10. I'm like, all right, yeah, here we go. Chargers are going to take control of this game. Bucky Irving went off to Rachaad White in a good game. That is a nice 1-2 combo. Bucky Irving's been like insane this year. He's very fun to watch. Mike Evans went off in this game, keeping his 1,000-yard consecutive receiving streak on the line. Jalen McMillan had a good game too. Yeah, Herbert. He didn't play great, but I don't think he played horrible. Yeah, literally almost nothing in the run game from the Chargers. I mean, the Bucs get a pretty solid run defense. Chargers have been struggling to run the ball since Dobbins has been hurt, but still, they got to get more out of the run game. McConkey played good. Sean Smart played good. Quentin Johnson played good. What are the team stats here? Jesus, 506 total yards. The game was close at halftime. In the second half, the Bucs just blew the Chargers out. I think these stats are pretty telling, but maybe a bit misleading because it was close for a half. But yeah, the Bucs definitely outplayed them, deserved to win this game. I knew it was a possibility the Bucs would win, but I picked the Chargers to win and was actually fairly confident with that. I picked them +7 in my parlay spreads just to give myself some some leniency. But of course, they did not cover that. They lost by 23 points. Did not expect that at all. Yeah, I think these stats are pretty telling. Bucs outplayed the Chargers. Cannot believe they got 506 yards against the Chargers. But yeah, not a great game for the Chargers, but not too concerned. I think they'll bounce back. Bucs look like they're definitely going to win the division. So really good win for the Bucs. They haven't lost since their bye week. Definitely the best team they played since the bye week. So good for the Bucs to get a good solid win in that one. Colts Broncos. This was an interesting game too because the Colts were winning for a majority of this game. They were up 13 or 14 to, or no, 13-7 at halftime. Their defense was balling out, playing really well. Nix had a couple rough stretches in this game. He threw 3 picks. The Broncos offense is not doing too much. Colts defense was balling out. Their offense is moving the ball fairly efficiently too. And then the turning point was Jonathan Taylor had a walk-in touchdown. I mentioned this earlier, and he fumbled the ball. Like, oh, God, that triggers me. Would the Colts have won of that if Taylor, didn't do that and got the touchdown? Who knows? It just felt like that was a bit of a momentum shift for the Broncos. But who knows? Richardson didn't really play too great. Wonder if he wants to do the take the L dance to my team now after pretty much just eliminating his team from the playoffs and playing like shit like he is most of his games in the NFL. But again, not to shit on Richardson, be a hater, but I've been indifferent on Richardson, but that really pissed me off when he did the take the L dance to my team. And again, he won the game, so he has the right to do it, but really pissed me off. Jonathan Taylor had a pretty good game. Obviously, that horrible fumble play he had. Richardson had a keeper for a touchdown. Good amount of rushes from Richardson per normal, per usual. Pittman had a pretty solid game. Kyle Granson had a couple receptions too. Josh Downs getting involved. Bo Nix, very up and down game, not a great game. He had 3 touchdowns and 3 picks, and he only had 130 yards. Rushing pretty much non-existent from the Broncos. They did have their defense in an insane pick 6 on a trick play where I forget who it was, but one of their linebackers came out of absolutely nowhere and just got the pick 6 on a trick play. They were attempting a double pass back to Richardson, and it was a pick 6. So that was as soon as that happened, like, all right, well, the Broncos probably just won this game. Again, from a receiving perspective, not much. Sutton got open on a touchdown from Nix on the sideline. That was a nice play. Besides that, very little from the Broncos receiving core. I mean, you look at the stats here. It's like, how the hell not only did the Colts lose this game, but they lost by almost 30 or 20 points. Like, Jesus. Um, Again, I think that pick six and the Jonathan Taylor fumble was absolutely killer for the Colts. They honestly probably outplayed the Broncos in this game. It's insane to say, but because they've lost 13-31, but you just look at the stats here and it supports that. They outplayed the Broncos in most of these categories. Um, yeah, so I think the pick six and that Jonathan Taylor fumble were huge in this game. Colts, just a really tough loss. Pretty much, they need to win out, have a bunch of things bounce their way to make the postseason. They do have a very favorable schedule, though, so they definitely have a good chance at winning out. Broncos, I want to say they simply need to win one of their next three, and they are in the. I'm pretty sure they just have to win one of their next three, and they clinch a playoff spot. So they might even tonight. I think they have a decent chance of beating the Chargers, even though I'm picking the Chargers. Um, so we shall see what happens with that. But good win for the Broncos. Well, ugly win, but good win to get the dub over a competitive Colts team pushing for the playoffs, kind of evenly matched, it feels like. So good for the Broncos to get that win. Oh boy. Okay, I'm gonna take a sip of water before I talk about this game here. Oh boy. Did this game piss me off? So we played pretty bad in this game, but we had portions throughout this game where I'm like, okay, we can actually maybe make this competitive game and maybe even steal it, get a win. Oh my God. So, a lot of questions about the play calling in this game. Even on our opening drive, we moved the ball down the field pretty well. We ran a wide receiver screen on 3rd and 1. There was a penalty, and we run a wide receiver screen again. Like, bruh, what are we doing? What are we doing? Another sequence in this game. It was 3rd and 1. We run the ball right up the middle, basically a halfback dive variation. It gets stuffed. 4th and 1, we do the same exact thing, and it gets stuffed. Why are we not at least? I understand 3rd down, the halfback dive call pretty much, but the 4th down, why are we not either A, sneaking it, or B, giving May some type of a read option? And Mayo in the press conference, Scott asked about that, and he said, you said it and I didn't to the reporter. And Mayo's trying to say that was taken out of context, but still. Oh, God. May, I think, actually played a pretty solid game, though. He only had 4 incompletions and 202. The pick was not on him. Booty, bobbled out of his hands and was picked. It had a nice shuffle touchdown play to Douglas where he was scrambling and at the last second shuffled it to Douglas. That was a nice play. Stevenson had a pretty solid game, too. 69 rush yards. Nice. Gibson, he looked pretty good, not from a rushing perspective, but he had a couple nice plays in this one too. Actually, most of them came in the run game. Only 33 yards, almost 5 yards a carry. Kyler got hurt. He came back in. He played pretty solid, I think. There's also sequence in this game. The Cardinals were up 3-0. They ran some sweep play, some eye candy play, and I think it was Greg Dortch fumbled it into the end zone, and one of their linemen recovered it for a touchdown. I'm like, all right, well, I thought initially it was going to be a touchback. I didn't think the lineman was fully in bounds. I'm like, all right, well, we just caught a break there. Hopefully we can take advantage. And nope, not what happened. I guarantee you, if that's probably going to be how the Chiefs win a playoff game or one of the next 3 games, is something like that's probably going to happen to win them a game of some sort. Either that or how the Bengals went off with the Cowboys off that block punt. That's probably how the Chiefs will win another game too. James Conner looked pretty good in this game. We cannot start James Conner receiver wise. Trey McBride had a good game. Greg Dortch had a big gain on 3rd down. Get the team stats here. Again, I think it's kind of even the Cardinals were up 3 scores at 2 separate times in the 4th quarter. I think the game was a bit closer than the final score indicates. Actually, I think the final score is pretty telling of how the game went. We were close in a lot of these stats here. Even had zero point 0.1 more yards per play. I will say our hurry up one. Even we don't have many positives in this year, but one of our positives from this year is our hurry up offense, and we need to score. And again, teams are probably in prevent defenses, especially when they're up multiple scores late in the game. Our hurry up offense actually looked pretty good. So that's one slight positive from this disaster of a year for us. Yeah, so a lot of these stats pretty close. I think might be a bit telling how the game went. Yeah, I would say they're pretty telling for the most part. But yeah, really annoying loss that my team got in this one. Cardinals very much they need to pretty much win out, have a lot of things, maybe not a lot, but have some things bounce their way to get into the postseason. I think the Commanders need to lose 2 out of the next 3 for the big is the one I can think of. Then probably some other things. I don't exactly remember the Cardinals playoff scenario at the top of my head, but I think that's one of them. They need to win out. So yeah, good. Or do the Commanders might need to lose out actually, because if both teams finish 10-7, I'm not sure who would have the tiebreaker between these two teams. But anyway, not to get ahead of myself. I don't think the Cardinals are going to make the playoffs, but who knows? Just really infuriating loss from maybe not infuriating, but just disappointing loss. I was just pissed off watching this game. Cardinals much needed win, so good for them to get that win against us. Bills Lions. Talk about a shootout. The highest scoring game in the league this year. Bills Rams obviously was a shootout last week, so the Bills putting up 40 plus back to back weeks. So maybe obviously that's you want to score as much as possible for the most part with your offense every week. But defensively, maybe some signs were concerned for the Bills, but I'm not too concerned. I think they'll clean things up. They'll be fine defensively. But Josh Allen is, I mean, he's played absolutely out of his mind the past 2 weeks, and like most of the season, he's the favorite for MVP, probably going to win it. Especially if the Bills get the 1 seed, like I think they will. James Cook had a good game in this one. Josh Allen went off even rushing. Ty Johnson was their leading receiver. That's a little surprising. He had 5 for $114. That'll work. Dalton Kincaid played well. Keon Coleman caught a deep pass. The Bills' offense could not be stopped. I'm literally, off the top of my head, I think they scored every drive at least a field goal except one. The Lions defense, the poor Lions, has been absolutely decimated with injuries, especially defensively. They even got killed more defensively in this game with injuries. Now Montgomery is, I think he's out at least a couple weeks. I think there were a report came out yesterday that said they're waiting to put him on season-ending IR, but probably going to end up being on it. So that's just the Lions just absolutely brutal. Hopefully luckily for them they play the Bears this week, so maybe get some confidence back. Their defense plays well. Dan Campbell had a fiery speech on a radio show about the opportunities and how he's very optimistic about this year still. I would definitely run through a wall for Dan Campbell. Goff had a really good game too. He put up like a Burrow stat line and lost. He got the Burrow treatment pretty much. They couldn't really run the ball because they were trailing most of this game. The Lions were. Amon-Ra went off. I think he had he was under the weather or something like that. So he maybe like an MJ flu type of game, even though they lost. Laporta went off. Gibbs went off. I mean, every one of the receivers had a good game pretty much. Look at the team stats here. I think it's pretty telling of how the game went. Bunch of yards, except rushing yards for the Lions. Both teams, high yards per play. A lot of first downs. Good third down efficiency for both teams for the most part. Fourth down, both teams are perfect. Yeah, I think these stats are pretty telling. It's just the Bills defense got, not many softs, but a couple more than the Lions. So Lions, hopefully their defense, I mean, their offense, the good thing is their offense is still going to be good to put up a bunch of yards and points every week. But the bad thing is the Lions, their defense, they really need to just have guys step up and play at, high levels for I think, to make a Super Bowl run. So hopefully the Lions, their season doesn't get derailed by injuries, but unfortunately, it looks like there's a good chance of that happening. I think everyone, except if your team's in the playoffs, is probably pulling for the Lions this year to win it all. Um, Especially if it's them in Kansas City in the Super Bowl. I think any human with a a neutral mindset, basically anyone outside of Kansas City or is a Kansas City fan, I think will be pulling for the Lions to win the Super Bowl if it's against the Chiefs. But not to get ahead of myself, this was a really good game. Definitely a shootout. Bills, good bounce back win against what I think is the best team in football. So good for the Bills. Lions, again, Dan Campbell talked about it in his radio interview, but people are asking like the their season's over. Obviously not the case. They lose one game, Dan Campbell said, and everything crumbles down. I think they'll be fine, honestly. I think they have a good chance. The one seed, even if they don't get it, I don't know. They're hard to predict with all the injuries. We're just gonna have to see how the rest of the year plays out. But I think at least in the regular season they'll probably be fine. At least beat the Bears at bare minimum. I forget. I know they play the Vikings. I forget who they play. Before that, let me see their schedule here. Oh, the Niners. That'll be an interesting. They probably should win that game, but who knows with all the injuries. That'll be interesting to see how that game goes. But yeah, my point is, I think the Lions, I don't think their season's over or anything like that. Steelers Eagles. Let me see the time possession really quick for this game. So yeah, almost 40-20. The Steelers had two possessions offensively in the second half. That's it, two. The Eagles, their last shot, they ran 21 plays and like 10 minutes off the clock or something. So the Steelers' offense was very slow to start this game. They had a pretty good second quarter, though. They scored 10 in the second quarter. They had their two drives in the second half. They were kind of moving the ball. Then, as soon as that Harris fumble, that pretty much was a big turning point in this game. Felt like the Steelers might score. Then, obviously, they didn't with the turnover. So that was a big turning point. Uh, Talking point is AJ Brown in the passing game had a really good performance in this one. Hurts had a really good passing game. 25-32, 290, two touchdowns. That'll work. Saquon had a pretty good game too. Well, he only had 3.4 yards per carry, but heavy workload. Really good defense. Pretty solid game for Saquon, I think. Hurts had a good game rushing the ball too. Gainwell had a couple nice catches in this one. AJ Brown, Smith both had good games. Looking at the Steelers here, Russ, not a great game, but very limited opportunities, especially after the slow start that they had. A bunch of punts that the Eagles defense forced. Pretty much nothing in the run game. Calvin Austin had a pretty nice game, but outside of that, very little. Looking at the team stats here, I think it's pretty telling of how the game went. Honestly, I think this game might be a little closer than the stats are suggesting here. It's just the Eagles absolutely dominated the time possession, which really limited the Steelers' offensive opportunities. So maybe a little not skewed because it is what happened, but maybe a bit not fully telling, I guess. I don't know. Hopefully you guys know what I'm talking about. 16 more first downs, so that's pretty significant. Yeah, 17 third down attempts for the Eagles. My God. But yeah, I think these stats are pretty telling. Steelers, I expected them to lose this game. You know, not too concerned with the Steelers. I think they'll be fine. It's going to be interesting. That's another team that's going to be interesting to see how they do in the postseason. Whatever team ends up getting, I think the Steelers are probably going to end up winning the division. If I had to guess, I need to see both teams' schedules. I honestly don't know. But regardless, my point is if they don't, and either them or the Ravens are almost certainly going to be the 5 seed, I'm pretty sure. Whichever team plays the Texans in the first round, I'm probably going to be taking them to win. So, going to be interesting to see how that pans out there. The Eagles have a really good chance at the 1 seed. So do the Vikings. I'll talk about that game in a bit. But yeah, this Eagles really good game, impressive with their time possession. It's like if you're playing a Madden head-to-head game and your opponent's just chewing the clock the entire game, it's like, okay, like really just lame like that. Those types of people just annoy me and piss me off. Really, the only time I chew clock in Madden is like end of half situations where I'm about to score, um, and my opponent, I'm about to score and want to limit the amount of time my opponent has, or at the end of the game, trying to play the clock game, score the little time left. Besides that, I don't just chew the clock the whole game. That's basically what the Eagles did, especially in the second half. So that was impressive, though, what they did. Steelers, I think, will be fine, but good win for the Eagles in this one. Packers Seahawks. So the Packers dominated this game from start to finish. Seahawks made kind of a late push, made it a little interesting, but the Packers rather just dominated this game. Geno Smith got hurt. They're apparently optimistic about him though playing. Sam Howell looked when he came in relief. He looked awful. He did not look very good. Yeah, 5 of 14, 24 and a pick. Geno didn't play great either. He had kind of an ugly pick right in the right when it looked like they might get back in the game, down 2 scores. He threw a pick in the red zone. Charbonnet had a pretty good game. He had a rushing touchdown late that made it interesting. JSN had a pretty good game. Jordan Love played a really solid game too. Josh Jacobs at the start of this game looked like he was going to rush for 1,000 yards at the rate he was rushing the ball, and then the Seahawks really cleaned up their rush defense in the second half. Really shut Josh Jacobs down in the second half rushing. Christian Watson had a good game. Josh Jacobs, a couple nice receptions too. Dobbs had a touchdown. Well, he had 2 touchdowns. One of them late that iced the game was kind of insane. Nice balance there from the Packers receiving core. I think these stats are pretty telling. Packers pretty much dominated the game, as I mentioned. So yeah, I think these stats are pretty telling. Yeah. They only had 5 penalties. Well, both teams had 5 penalties, but 108 yards. That's a problem for the Seahawks. They certainly want to clean that up. Some PI calls in there. That's why. But yeah, Packers dominated this game pretty much. I figured this might be a scenario, and I figured the game would be a bit closer. Packers are certainly a sleeper team. Not many people talking about them. I think they're more than capable of making a potential Super Bowl run. I think they're definitely going to at least make some noise in the postseason. That'll be interesting to see how that pans out for them. They're heating up at the right time like they were at the end of the year last year. Seahawks definitely have a chance to make the postseason still. They just have to, if they win out, they make the playoffs. I don't think they will. I think the Rams are going to win the division, but definitely a legitimate chance for the Seahawks still. Going to be interesting to see how their year ends. But yeah, Packers heating up at the right time. Good win for them. Not a great performance in the Seahawks, but I'm not too concerned on their end. Bears Vikings. So just another disaster for the Bears. Just not a good performance. Vikings good performance. This game was a little concerning potentially at one point because the Vikings were up 13-0, but it felt like they were just dominating the game. They should have been up by more than that. All it takes is just a touchdown, and the Bears are right back in the game. Which they did get a touchdown. It was going to be, assuming they make the extra point with Santos, 13-7, but it got called back, and they ended up having to settle for a field goal. So the Vikings had a couple of drives where they stalled out, but they scored a touchdown in the third and fourth quarter, really iced the game. Bears got a touchdown with about 6 minutes left. Made it a little interesting, I guess, but the Vikings just put the game away. Darnold didn't play the greatest game, but I think he had a decent game, at least pretty solid. Aaron Jones had a pretty good game, had some nice running lanes. Cam Akers got a touchdown too. Jefferson had a good game. Addison, good game. Hawkinson, good game. Good to see him back and healthy, playing good. Nice balance there from the Vikings receiving core. Well, not even their receiving core, some of their backs and tight ends, but you guys know what I mean. Caleb Williams, not a great game. Statistically, it's actually not an awful game, but they had a bunch of fourth and shorts that the Vikings stopped them on. Caleb Williams, there's a meme. He got hit hard and it was on the sideline, like in pain, just disappointment. Getting meme for that. Um, DeAndre Swift had a couple nice rushes in this one. Pretty solid game from him. Keenan Allen caught that touchdown I mentioned with around 6 minutes left. DJ Moore, not a great game, but getting involved. 8 receptions, 42. So I guess good for fantasy purposes. Looking at the team stats here, I think it's pretty telling of how the game went. Vikings kind of dominated, but basically the Vikings kept stalling out, and it looked like the Bears might be able to get back in the game, have a chance to make it interesting, and the Vikings defense just kept coming up clutch. I think that combined with the Bears' just ineptitude offensively kept the Vikings in control of this game. But yeah, I think these stats are pretty telling, kind of closer than the final score suggested, which I think I would agree with. Um, yeah, I think these stats are definitely pretty telling. But obviously the Bears, their seasons, ever since that Hail Mary from the Commanders pretty much derailed their season, which I didn't expect it to happen. I knew it was a possibility, but I didn't expect it to happen. It has. But oh boy, that Hail Mary just completely derailed the Bears' year. It felt like they were so close to being 5-3. Oh boy, just tough for the Bears. But yeah, the Bears really just want this season to be over with. You know, get a new head coach in there, get a new offensive line, clean some things up, and help Caleb Williams out. Maybe they can play better, maybe win a game or two. I don't think they'll win out, but try to end the year on a high note. But their season's just been a disaster. The Vikings, if the Vikings went out, they're at least um they'll at least be the 2 seed because they play the Lions. So they went out. They'll at least win the division, which is hard to believe a team that's 15-2 could not be the 1 seed. I don't know if I don't know who is the tiebreaker between them and the Eagles actually, but I know for sure if the Eagles at least lose one and the Vikings win out, the Vikings will be the 1 seed, which I don't think anyone, even the most optimistic of Vikings fans, would have expected at the start of the year. Yeah, Vikings have just been a major sleeper team. Again, there's something that I just don't fully, I don't know how to say fully trust in them, but teams like the Packers, Lions, and Eagles, I just would probably trust them more and put them in a higher tier than the Vikings as a chance to make a good run in the postseason. I don't know. I don't know exactly what it is, but again, I'll talk about it more in my playoff videos. But Vikings been very impressive with them this year, especially defensively. Sam Darnold looked really good. So a good win for them against a bad team. Could have been sneaky, but the Vikings sort of was. But the Vikings taking care of business there. Falcons Raiders. Oh boy. So I hate when they have 2 Monday night games on at once, and especially in a bad game like this. So good and bad news to the Falcons. Well, I guess 2 events for bad news to the Falcons. The good news is the defense played well, but again, what against what? Desmond Ridder and the Raiders offense that's been bad in general this year, but especially with the Raiders. Their defense played well. It's been playing fairly well the past couple of weeks. Even that Vikings game, they obviously allowed 41, so they didn't play great, but I think they played a little better than the final score would indicate there. They've been getting a lot more pressure. They got a decent amount of sacks in this one, I think. Uh, yeah, 4. Okay, so not. I was feeling maybe around 5 or 6, but still pretty solid. I feel like they got a good amount of pressure on Ridder. So that's the good news for the Falcons. The bad news is the Bucks upset the Chargers. So if the Bucks lost that game, as bad as the Falcons have looked, as ugly as this win was, they would have been leading the division still because they would have had the tiebreaker over the Bucks, even though they both would have been 7-7. The other bad news is their offense, specifically passing, struggled, and Kirk Cousins did not look too great. They benched him for Michael Penix, so that brings up a multitude of questions. Is his NFL career done? Well, I don't probably not, but I've seen some people talking about it. The Falcons, blow all the money that they paid Cousins. Is Penix going to get benched? What's Cousins' confidence going to be he if Penix shits the bed and Cousins has to go back in there? Just kind of, I guess it'll be quite the story if Penix ends up getting benched or something, and Cousins comes back in and just balls out. That'll be a nice story. I don't think the Falcons are going to win their division though. I don't think they'll make the playoffs most likely. But I mean, their offense can't be much worse with Penix. I don't really know much about Michael Penix. I'm not really a big college guy. He's looked, I think, fairly good in the limited action he's gotten. Most of it's been in garbage time. But they play the Giants this week, so couldn't have picked a better game for him to start, I guess. But yeah, Cousins, I mentioned, didn't have a great game. He started off good, but then, didn't really play too great after that. Bijan had a big game. He played really well, big workload for him. Algier, good amount. That's a nice 1-2 combo of Robinson and Algier that they have. Algier got a bit involved. London caught a touchdown. That was when Cousins looked good early. Pitts, kind of a quiet game per usual. Ray McLeod only caught one pass, but he's having a career year, I think. He's been very underrated this year. Darnell Mooney got a nice cardio day from a stats perspective. Yeah, Ritter didn't play good this game. The Raiders made a push late in this game where they scored a touchdown, and then the Falcons went 3-0. They got bailed out on a bad roughing the passer call on Kirk Cousins. They went 3-0 again. Well, not 3-0, but they had 3 plays where they didn't get the first down. Raiders got the ball back and put together a drive. I'm like, are they seriously about to win this game with the Falcons just dominating the game from start to finish? Their defense balling out. I'm like, are they seriously about to steal this game? I mean, Ritter was throwing into the end zone. He got 2 throws into the end zone with a chance to win the game. The second one got picked as the time expired. But Jesus, they almost stole this game from the Falcons. So I guess Ritter looked solid late is what I'm trying to say there. He was also their leading rusher, so that's a problem usually. Yeah, they've had nothing in the run game pretty much the whole year, but not a good rushing day from the Raiders. Jacoby Myers played a solid, consistent game. God, do I miss him on the Patriots. Amir Abdullah, he's kind of a PPR stud too. Past couple weeks, been a PPR stud. He had a 4th down and 8 that it was just Ritter snapped the ball and then immediately threw it to Abdullah like within a second. I'm like, what the hell is he doing? Just lost the game. Abdullah made an insane move to get a first down. As soon as Ritter threw it, even the commentator, I think it was I'm blanking on his name. I want to say it was Chris Fowler. He was like, nope, and then he ended up getting the first down. I'm like, well, that's what I was thinking too. He also got a touchdown reception on a nice spin move he made. Brock Bowers didn't do too much. Trey Tucker, yeah. The rest of their guys didn't really do too much. Looking at the team stats here, I think it's probably pretty telling. Even though the Falcons, it felt like were dominating this game, they were in control. The Raiders never had a lead at any point in this game. Falcons defense just basically single-handedly won them the game. So it felt like the Falcons dominated. So even though Ritter was thrown into the end zone with a chance to win, the Falcons just completely dominated. Had the Raiders won this game, it would have been a complete steal of a win. The Falcons dominated, should have won by more. They didn't. A lot of these stats are close, but again, Falcons dominated. It's maybe a bit misleading. But I just can't believe the Raiders were thrown in a chance thrown in the end zone, the chance to win the game there at the end. That was insane how poor they played. Well, their defense played good, but offensively, I mean. But yeah, Falcons, a lot of questions. They just gotta clean up their offense. Their defense actually been playing fairly well. Gonna be interesting to see how Penix looks, except again against the Giants. So couldn't have picked literally the worst team in football. So good matchup for Penix to start against in his first career start. Okay, got all the games here. Just let me double check. Yep. All right, so I got all the games. Yeah, so pretty good mix of games. Only 3 more weeks in the regular season left before the playoffs. Excited for that. Probably the best time of football all year. It's around, week 15, maybe week 16 on, somewhere around there. As teams make playoff pushes, the best quality football gets played around the time, a lot of the time, I feel like. Yeah. Good mix of games, pretty entertaining week. Hopefully you guys are good with fantasy. You're in the playoffs. You did good betting with your picks. I will end the video here. I'm going to shortly record a video predicting the Thursday night game tonight along with the Saturday games we have. Just be on the lookout for that. But I will end this video here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Oh, betting. Maybe I just mentioned, I don't know, but hopefully you guys did good betting too. I didn't mention that. But anyway, I won the video, guys. I won. Can't talk. Tongue twisters. Okay. I will end the video here. There we go. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed and take it easy.